When I walked into the ballroom of the Langley Ridge Hotel that afternoon, I told myself I was doing the right thing by showing up. My dress was simple. Black. Classy. The kind you wear to look like you're fine without saying you're fine. I held my shoulders back. Wore the small gold locket my son had given me for my birthday. I'd told him it was just a grown-up party, and he'd smiled like he understood. He always understood more than he should have had to. The air inside was cool and sweet with florals, orchids, white roses, maybe peonies. The music was low and elegant. Waiters passed around flutes of champagne, and people I hadn't seen in years were hugging, snapping photos, adjusting their hair. I stood near the edge of the room, taking it in. I hadn't been part of the planning, of course. My sister Liana never asked for help. She liked things curated, staged, controlled. Even her engagement had felt like a soft launch of a luxury brand. Photos by the cliffs, color palettes announced before the actual ring. Still, I was here, for her. Because weddings are family events, and even if your place in that family is messy, even if it's barely held together by years of taped-on politeness, you show up. You dress nice, you clap at the right moments. You smile, even when the memory of not being invited to the bridal shower still stings somewhere in your ribcage. Liana made her entrance exactly on time. She was stunning, of course. She always had been. Hair done in a smooth knot, lips red, gown minimal but blinding. The kind of beautiful that pulls every eye into orbit. She walked past me without a flicker of recognition. I didn't flinch. I took a seat near the back, not too close to seem intrusive, not too far to seem bitter. Dinner passed in a blur of courses I barely tasted. People made small talk. I sipped my wine slowly, told myself I was doing fine, but this would all be over soon. Then it was time for the toasts. Her best friend spoke first. A few harmless jokes about Liana's perfectionism, her spreadsheets, her taste in wine, laughter, clinks of glasses. Then Liana stood. No one asked her to. No one needed to. She took the mic from the DJ and smiled in that way she had, charming and calculating at the same time. I want to thank you all for being here, she began. And I especially want to thank my big sister for coming. We weren't sure she'd make it. I blinked. She turned her body slightly, as if framing the spotlight around her words. She's been so busy, raising a kid alone, navigating, all that. A ripple of uneasy laughter moved through the tables. She's like the family cautionary tale, but with really good posture. More laughter, this time louder, some shocked, some confused. I didn't move. My wine glass was still in my hand, my fingers perfectly still around the stem. She told me once that motherhood is its own kind of ceremony. Liana air-quoted the phrase, which is a really poetic way to say your boyfriend left and you made it work anyway. Silence. Then another wave of laughter. This one thinner, more forced. I could feel heat rise in my chest. Not rage, not embarrassment. Just that dizzying sense that you've been stripped in a room full of people who still expect you to smile. She moved on after that. Gushed about her new husband, about love, about doing things the right way. But it didn't matter. The damage had already been done. I sat through it. Not because I was weak, but because I had learned the power of stillness. The power of saying nothing when the world expects you to break. I didn't cry. I didn't run out. I didn't look away. I just waited. And in that quiet pause before the next speech, before the next clink of a glass, I saw him. Derek. Her groom, standing just behind her, hands loosely folded, watching her with a strange expression. Not angry, not shocked. Something else. Like someone seeing a shadow they'd been pretending wasn't there. He didn't smile, he didn't clap, he just took the mic from her hand. And that's when the room changed. My name is Ria Malden. I run a small online branding studio that I built from my kitchen table with a baby monitor on one side and a half-charged laptop on the other. I live in a modest duplex outside Charleston with my son Eli. He's 7. He likes volcanoes, playing toast, and drawing robots with extra arms so they can hug more people. I live a quiet life in a loud world. I wasn't always this quiet. When Liana and I were younger, people called us the Malden sisters, like we were a matched set. Same dark eyes, same posture, but Liana smiled wider. She won spelling bees, wore dresses without getting them dirty. I was the curious one. I took apart remote controls just to see what made them work. I got caught climbing trees in jeans with ripped knees. She sang solos. I fixed broken sink knobs. And from the time we were teenagers, I understood my job in the family was to be less dramatic, less needy, less noticed. Liana was the one with a future. I was the one who'd probably figure something out. When I got pregnant at 26, there were no tears, no hugs, just a conference room silence over dinner. My father cleared his throat like it personally offended him. My mother set down her fork with such exaggerated care it might have shattered the table. Liana looked up from her phone and said, Well, that tracks. The father, Mark, left before I could even memorize the pattern of freckles on his shoulders. I don't blame him anymore. He wasn't ready, and I didn't beg him to be. I just adapted. I moved in with a friend for 6 months, took freelance design jobs, skipped sleep, learned how to heat bottles with one hand while sketching wireframes with the other. The family never said I was an embarrassment. They didn't have to. It was in the way invites stopped arriving, in the way conversations were suddenly all about Liana's promotions and brunches and rooftop parties I wasn't included in. I wasn't exiled exactly. I was repackaged as a lesson. Every time Liana saw me, she'd ask about Eli in that voice. That voice that said, "I'm pretending to care while also reminding you that your life is a warning." "You know," she said once, "you should post less about him online. It's a little desperate, only she calls me that." It used to feel affectionate. Now it's the name she uses when she's trying to smile while punching. I stayed quiet, because I was tired, because I was surviving, because I didn't have the energy to win family affection and keep a toddler from falling off the bed in the same week. But something shifted when Eli started school. One day, he came home from first grade and said, "Mommy, why don't we go to Grandma's house like the others?" I looked at his face, earnest, soft, untouched by the politics of silence, and something hardened in me. I didn't want him to grow up thinking he was a side note. So I started changing things. I took on more work, said no to clients who paid too little, focused on branding campaigns for small businesses. One of them went viral, a bakery that made ADHD-friendly packaging. We were featured in a blog, then in a local paper, then a national newsletter. Suddenly, my inbox filled with requests. A sustainable skincare brand wanted a full visual identity. A tech nonprofit asked me to design a social campaign. I hired help. Built a tiny team of women with gaps on their resumes and fire in their stomachs. Meanwhile, Liana kept thriving, at least online. Perfect posts, perfect shoes, perfect captions about balance and finding her power. Except I knew where she found it, in the hollow space left behind when she pushed other people out. The thing is, I wasn't jealous. Not exactly. I just wanted space to breathe without having to explain why I didn't match the brochure version of success. And then came her engagement. Her email invite was 3 lines long. "Hope you can make it to the wedding. No need for gifts, just your presence. We're doing simple, L." It felt like an afterthought. I told myself it didn't matter. But of course, I went. I showed up, and she still chose to make a spectacle of me. Still saw me as the built-in contrast to her shine. And the worst part, she thought the whole room would laugh with her. Some of them did. Even people who once held my baby. People who sent Christmas cards with "Miss You" scribbled under photos of dogs and sweaters. They laughed because no one ever wants to be the one who doesn't. Until they saw Derek's face. Her fiancé, now husband, stood just behind her as she delivered her punchline, and while people laughed, he didn't. His jaw was tight, his eyes didn't blink. He looked at me, not with pity, not with confusion, with something closer to realization. Like a man who'd just seen the story behind the script. He didn't move at first. Then he reached out, took the mic from her hand gently, like it was nothing more than a napkin she'd dropped, and just said, "I think that's enough." His voice wasn't loud, but the silence that followed felt like thunder. I didn't speak to anyone for the rest of the night, not because I was angry, because I couldn't trust myself to open my mouth without bleeding. After Derek took the mic and said those 5 quiet words, "I think that's enough," something shifted. Liana laughed, nervously, trying to reclaim the moment. "Oh, come on, babe, it was just a joke." He didn't laugh. He didn't even look at her. He looked at me. Our eyes met for less than a second, but in that second I saw it, the fracture. A hairline crack between his perception and her performance. The kind that doesn't seem like much until it breaks the whole foundation later. I stayed until cake was served. Then I left. No hugs. No goodbyes. Just out the side exit, heels quiet against the stone, past the valet who didn't offer to call a car. I walked to my own. Drove myself home, took off the dress carefully like it belonged to someone else. Eli was already asleep. I climbed into bed beside him and let my mind settle into the silence. This is what people don't tell you about starting over. The hardest part isn't the work, or the loneliness, or even the way people look at you like you're a crack in the sidewalk they might trip over. The hardest part is showing up anyway, over and over, with no one watching. After I had Eli, I lost everything that made me feel like a real adult. No 401k. No regular paycheck, no safety net. My friends stopped texting, coworkers ghosted. My phone became quiet in a way that felt like grief. And in that void, I made something. I had an old sketchbook, a secondhand laptop, and a lot of long nights where I designed while Eli snored softly beside me. I posted mock-ups, redesigned logos for Etsy shops, bartered work for groceries. One bakery owner, Clarice, gave me a shot. She paid me $400 and 3 boxes of muffins to redesign her entire brand. I gave her 6 options. She cried when she saw the final one. That was the first time I believed I might actually be good at this. That job led to 2 more, then 4, then 10, all small, all scrappy, but each one built something in me. I named the studio Northline after the street Eli was born on. It started as a placeholder. Now it's trademarked. 3 years ago, I filed as an LLC. 1 year ago, we hit 6 figures. And just 3 months ago, I got a call from Create Her, a women-led accelerator that funds solo founders in creative industries. They'd seen my campaign for a domestic violence nonprofit, the one that used blank squares and motion graphics to show silence as a form of control. It made rounds on social. They asked if I wanted to apply for a $50,000 grant. I didn't cry when I got the acceptance call. I just sat very still, stared at my calendar, and whispered, "We made it." And here's the part that still stings in a strange, quiet way. I never told Liana. Not because I was hiding it, but because she never asked. She never once asked me how the business was going. Never asked about Eli's school projects or how I managed payroll or if I was okay. The only time she reached out last year was to ask if I could pretty up her engagement announcement with some Canva graphics. She never even said thank you. She just texted, "Looks good, sending now." And I let her, because I'd rather do the work than fight to be seen. But something changed after that wedding night. Something inside me refused to be erased again. The next morning, I posted a photo on Northline's page. It was one of Eli's drawings, a messy, lopsided robot with 6 arms and a big red heart. I captioned it, "Built from scratch, still holding strong. For every woman building in silence, we see you." The post got hundreds of likes, dozens of messages. One from a woman in Nebraska who wrote, "I just got left with 2 kids and a pile of bills." This post made me sit up straight. I framed the message, put it beside the framed first invoice from Clarice's bakery, and the grant acceptance letter, and the crayon robot. A week after the wedding, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address, just my name, handwritten in blue ink. Inside was a check. $5,000. Memo line, "For the next single mom you hire." No note, no signature. But I knew, it was Derek's handwriting. Weddings aren't meant for wake-up calls. They're built for performance. Edited love, matching fonts, perfect lighting. But every now and then, someone says something too real and shatters the script. Derek shattered it with 5 words. "I think that's enough." The mic was still warm from Liana's hand when he said it. She laughed, awkwardly, still playing for the room. "He's just being protective," she said, waving it off. "He gets sensitive when people bring up family stuff." Derek didn't move. He held the mic gently, like it might break under the weight of what he wanted to say. "I'm protective of decency," he said. The laughter ended. One of Liana's bridesmaids let out a nervous cough. Someone tapped a spoon against their champagne flute, trying to rescue the moment with levity. It didn't work. "I've met Rhea 3 times, he continued. Each time, she asked me more questions about my life than most people in this room have in 10 years. His voice wasn't angry. That's what made it worse. He wasn't performing. He was reporting. Calm, still, clear. I've also seen the way Liana talks about her when Rhea's not around. My body stiffened. This wasn't part of the plan. Not hers. Not mine. Certainly not his. Liana's smile cracked. "Derek," she hissed under her breath, stepping toward him, one manicured hand reaching for the mic. He stepped back. "I love you," he said to her. "But I'm not going to stand here and let you turn your sister into a joke in front of 200 people. No one breathed. Liana's cheeks flushed a deep, blotchy red. Her eyes darted around the room. She was trying to collect control, but it had already scattered. The spotlight, which had once made her glow, now turned hot and unkind. Derek handed the mic back to the DJ and walked off the platform. He didn't storm out. He just walked. Out the side door, he left her there. Center stage, alone. There was no music for a full 30 seconds. Then, like the wedding playlist itself had panicked, a light jazz track started up. People looked at their napkins, their phones, the ceiling. No one looked at me, until one woman did. An old family friend I hadn't seen since high school. Her lips pressed together, face pink with shame. She mouthed, "I'm sorry." I nodded. Then I got up and left. I didn't wait for cake this time. Didn't take my wedding favor. Didn't text anyone goodbye. As I reached the parking lot, I heard someone jogging behind me. "Rhea." I turned. It was Derek. He was out of his tux jacket, sleeves rolled, tie loosened. His face was unreadable, tired, calm, like someone who just walked out of a long, foggy dream. "I didn't mean to humiliate her," he said, catching his breath. "You didn't," I said. "She did that herself." He hesitated. "I should have said something sooner. I've heard her talk about you, the way your family does too. I assumed it was harmless, that it was just tone. It's always tone, I said quietly, until it's a mic in a ballroom. He looked down. I didn't know how lonely it must have been. I didn't reply, because the truth was, I had been lonely, brutally, painfully. But I'd learned how to make room inside the loneliness. I'd built furniture there, painted the walls, made it a place I could live without apology. I wanted to tell you something, Derek added. I waited. I looked you up after the rehearsal dinner. Northline? I didn't know you owned it. I thought it was some bigger agency. I smiled. It is, just small on purpose. He laughed under his breath. It's good work, really good. Then he handed me a folded slip of paper. This is the name of a women's shelter I've donated to. They're starting a job training program. They'll need branding. I took it. No promises. No flattery. Just a name, a lead, a gesture. Thank you, I said. He nodded. And Rhea? I think Eli's lucky to have you. That was it. He turned and walked back inside. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the paper in my hand. I didn't cry. Not yet. But something in me exhaled for the first time in years. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A group text. From my mother. Rhea, we'd love to have you and Eli over for dinner this weekend if you're free. Below that, from my dad. Bring some of your designs. I want to show them to a friend who works with nonprofits. I didn't reply right away. I watched Eli sleep for a while, hair messy on the pillow, one hand curled around the robot plush he insisted was on duty. Then I looked at the locket on my nightstand, the one he gave me, the one I wore to the wedding. Inside it was a tiny slip of paper, folded into fourths, with the words Supermom scribbled in green crayon. I opened it, ran my thumb across the word. It didn't matter who clapped. I'd already won. The following week was unusually quiet. No gossip, no dramatic fallout, no apology parade from Liana. Just silence. The kind that feels thick with the weight of things unsaid. I wasn't waiting for anything. I went back to work. Eli went back to school. We returned to our mornings of mismatched socks, rushed cereal, and his chatter about science projects and recess rules. At night, I drafted pitch decks, updated client timelines, paid invoices. Life kept moving, even if part of me was still back at that wedding, still standing in the echo of laughter that wasn't mine. On Wednesday, I got a call. Block number. I answered anyway. Rhea? Liana. Her voice was soft, not fragile, measured like she'd been rehearsing. Hey, I said, flat. I wanted to check in. I didn't say anything, she exhaled. You probably hate me. I don't, I said honestly, but I don't think you know me anymore, or maybe ever did. She didn't argue. I messed up, she said, voice catching. I thought I was being funny. I didn't realize. You didn't want to realize, I said, calm but firm, because if you did, you'd have to see what it cost me to get here. I see it now. Do you? I think I do. Silence. I've been looking through your website, she added, voice smaller. Northline, it's really good, like really. I know, I said. She gave a short laugh, almost bitter. Of course you do. There it was, that old reflex. But it passed. I'm not calling for forgiveness, she continued. I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to do now. You don't have to do anything, I said. You don't have to fix it. Then what? You just have to stop pretending I was less so you could feel more. I didn't mean to say it, but it came out. Clean. Honest. She didn't respond right away. Then I'm sorry. Not dramatic, not overwritten, just quiet. Almost raw. We hung up shortly after. No promises of brunch, no plans. Just a pause in a long, bruised timeline. Later that day, Eli came home with a drawing. It was our house. Lopsided roof, big window, a stick figure with wild brown hair holding hands with a smaller one labeled me. Underneath it, he'd written, "My mom builds things and fixes people too." I stared at it for a long time. The next day, I followed up on Derek's lead. The women's shelter's director emailed me back in all caps. "We would love to work with you." By Friday, I was onboarding a new hire, a single mother, just like me once, just starting over. "You sure I'm qualified?" she asked. "No," I said. "I'm sure you're capable." I meant it, because I knew now that the world doesn't hand out gold stars for resilience. It waits until you build something so undeniable, it has to shift to make room for you. On Sunday, I took Eli to my parents' house for dinner. It wasn't perfect. They talked more than they listened. But they asked questions. Real ones. My dad had printed 2 of my designs to show to his friend. My mom pulled out Eli's old baby blanket from storage. It was something. And then, just before we left, my mother handed me a small box. Inside was a necklace. A silver chain with a charm, a tiny engraved heart with a wrench etched in it. I looked at her. "It reminded me of you," she said. "Strong, but still soft where it matters." I didn't cry. I smiled, took Eli's hand, and walked out of that house feeling lighter than I had in years. I had been mocked, dismissed, overlooked. But in the end, I wasn't the one who needed saving. I used to think survival was the story, that getting through the worst parts, keeping the lights on, raising a boy alone, staying sane in a house filled with echoes, that was the victory. But I know better now. Survival is just the first chapter. The real story is what you build after no one claps. It's the choice to become something full, complex, and unshakable, even when the people you love most see you as a side note. It's making a home that's rooted in your voice, not their silence. These days, my mornings are slower. I drink my coffee hot. Eli reads to me while I pack his lunch. On my desk, beside my laptop and his lopsided robot drawing, sits the wrench heart necklace from my mother. I didn't expect to wear it, but I do. Because now it means something different. It's not a peace offering, it's proof that they saw me. Finally, not because I yelled, not because I begged, but because I kept building until the noise faded and the work spoke for itself. Liana and I still talk, carefully. There are wounds we don't name yet, but there's space now, real space. And I don't fill it with apology. Derek and I haven't spoken again. We don't need to. What he gave me wasn't validation, it was interruption. And sometimes, that's enough to break a spell. I don't know what comes next. I don't need to. What I have now is better than closure. I have clarity. I have a son who believes I fix people. And maybe in the end he's right. But the first person I had to fix was me.